I forget if it's NVIDIA or someone did with eye movement in video where it'll automatically fix. And
freaky.
Watching the last recording of this podcast, I was like, I could use that because my eyes.
I have special eyes.
On this episode, we discuss the future of trade shows, more on AI, and efficient installs. All that and more on EdTech.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
EdTech episode 107, a smarter, faster, better future. Hello, AV friends, and welcome to another episode of EdTech. As always, we have our panel of awesome higher ed AV professionals. Ernie Bailey. Hi, Ernie.
Hello, Erin. How are you doing today?
It's Friday.
It's Friday.
And we have with us Rob Rasberry. Hi, Rob.
Hey, Erin. It's great to be back with everybody again. It's like family.
Absolutely. And of course, Scott Tyner. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Erin. How are you? And hey, everybody. Always fun to be back.
Yeah. And today we have a special guest joining us for this episode from the University of Redlands, Luis Garcia. Hi, Luis. Welcome to our little group here. How about you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do over there?
Sure thing. So, like you said, my name is Luis Garcia. I work here at the University of Redlands as the Audiovisual Services Manager. We take care of anything from live conferencing needs across our campus to live event needs in support of our external clients that our event services office brings in. So we just finished off our commencement season. So 4 commencements at the very tail end of April. So very happy to be done with that. Was pretty much our showcase for moving more and more towards NDI and doing a lot of the work in-house that we would traditionally do with outside vendors. So we're really proud of the work that we were able to accomplish. Our students seem to be happy. Our administration and our fellow staff members that helped us pull it off, we're certainly happy. Want to do it and finally get it over with. So now that we ended up doing it in a new venue, so that was really cool to see that transition over from our traditional space and doing everything really for the first time and really just hitting out of the park.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. And it's interesting because I guess you guys must start your school year a little bit earlier, since I feel like most commencements are kind of hitting in May.
Yeah. We start around September for the fall, and we come right back mid-January for our spring semester. So everything wraps up around mid-April, and then a week and a half to go after classes kind of end and taper into exams. And it's just nonstop action until everybody walks across that stage.
Neat. Yeah, we're just actually next week will be finals, and then leading up into commencement. So definitely looking forward to just having that done, so we can move on and get that summer started.
Right.
Well, all right, everybody. This episode we have 3 articles that we all took a look at, and we'll start off with one from Rave Pubs, The Future of Trade Shows. And of course, who did write this one? Our very own Scott Tyner. So Scott, do you want to kick us off with this one?
Sure. It being trade show season, we're all thinking about trade shows. When I wrote this, we were coming out of the ISE season. I was going to a higher ed conference. And so I started thinking about and watching the social media reactions and the information that we were kind of getting out of ISE in particular. And a couple of things struck me. One is that it seems like conferences and trade shows and the like are pretty much back in full force. The couple that I've been to seem full attendance, people in person. There's even less hybrid stuff that they're doing, a few workshops here or there that are hybrid. But the other one that I really noticed, and I think there was some talk about it, we might have even talked about it here at one point, is about networking, is about education first. Infocom in particular is such an opportunity to get to meet people, to get to grow your network. This year, I know, Aaron, you're very involved in it. HETMA has a booth there, and I cannot tell you how important I think it is that people come back with a collection of people that they've networked with. Because as we all know, higher education shares a ton. And to be able to say, oh, I know somebody who did X, Y, Z, I'm going to reach out to them and hear about it. That's worth a trip to the show alone. And then when you get to the show floor, I'm really hoping that we start seeing less fake black boxes sitting on shelves that somebody tells us does something, but we might not see what that something is for months, around now, maybe years. And I think a much more practical, useful solution is let us put our hands on it. Let us use these devices, actually touch them, get into the menus, do whatever we want to do with them, and bring back real information. There's all kinds of websites. There's all kinds of trade publications now that give us kind of the specifications, but getting our hands on it is really what I think is super critical right now.
Agree with what Scott's saying. Yeah, the networking is very important. The education is important. I went to a little regional trade show back in January. They asked me to come speak on designing classrooms. It was a combination, higher ed and healthcare, which covers both areas of my campus. So I found it very interesting, but I was surprised at the turnout being as high as it was. It was the first time this trade show had happened since COVID. I went to it pre-COVID, and there were probably 50 or 60 people there. There were several hundred at the event this time. And it was good, like Scott said, to reconnect with old friends and colleagues, meet new people, see how people are doing things, how similar to you're doing to what other people are doing, and what's different. So between that and, like you said, the education, that's a very important part, and that's how we sell our leadership on sending people to Infocom or any other trade show. Yes, there is a show floor, and yes, we want to see it, but we're going to get some very good continuing education, and we're going to network with people, and we're going to see how to use the technology to improve our classrooms, our teaching methods here.
So I'm going to jump in on a little lower level of this, which I find interesting is, the big trade shows are back. But one thing that I've noticed, at least coming out of the pandemic, is I keep getting calls about more regional tech shows and symposiums and these kinds of trade things. And I've been immensely impressed. Now, typically, it's backed by a larger integrator that can, sort of handle this kind of thing, Simco, these kinds of things. But these regional trade shows, because like our travel budget got cut back. So I wish I could go to Infocom, but hopefully I'll be able to be there remote. And those are so valuable. But the regional tech shows are also, just as good to get your hands on tech, to connect, and then you make that path. You meet with the manufacturer, you have them demo something, and then you take it a step further. Listen, let me put our hands on it. Let's take your device for 30 days or a couple weeks in our environment, and let's see what's happening. And I've noticed they've been more amicable to that. It used to be, it was very difficult sometimes to get a demo unit. And now you just say it, and now they just send it to you. But you got to put your hands on it, see if it works, like Scott said, get that education and that networking, like Ernie said. But I agree. I think the trade shows are in full swing.
Last year was the first time I was able to attend Infocom, like the entire week through the education sessions and being on campus. And I think it'd been a few years, possibly even a decade before anybody from the university had been sent over, which, now that we've had that experience, we're bringing that experience back to campus and telling our supervisor administrators like the value that we, brought back from it. We're still reeling in the information and, diving into, network opportunities that we took advantage of while we were there 6 months, 8 months later, as new problems come up, new issues, hey, like there was that one piece of equipment, there was that one vendor that we talked to that would be really key to this particular situation. That, when we come back immediately, the projects are already in full swing. There's not really a conversation of like, oh, we need it right now. But having that, stockpile of business cards that I accumulated, walking the show floor, the products that we, were really, sold on by, whoever we were speaking to. The one that comes to mind is, like, for me, Teradek. We were using those like crazy during our board retreat this year in February, trying to, deploy a bunch of TVs, but with minimal staff, minimal equipment on hand. And I was like, that's the solution for this particular event. And to just see that growth happen and stack upon, year over year, if you're able to go to InfoComm or even have a hybrid offering of just listening in, just seeing what's out there, hearing the conversations that people are having, the voices that are coming through, and be able to interact with, an environment larger than just the University of Redlands was really like a profound experience for me, really being able to get out there and being able to like meet folks like yourselves and, have those conversations. What are you doing differently outside of education even, and bringing that back into the space that I work in and seeing how we can adapt those things.
Yeah. And I think it's gotten, as end users, I think we had always kind of had somewhat of an outside looking in view of these shows. And it's really fantastic that now we're kind of getting to be front and center. And I'm super excited about the HUTMA booth this coming InfoComm. And, since this episode will pretty much be live right before the show, I can spill a little bit of what's going to happen. And it's going to be great to have that central meeting place for all things that is higher ed AV, but also we are going to have the HETMA approved products in the booth in a live situation. So as Scott was talking about, like, it's not going to be just this black box that's sitting on a shelf or up on a wall with a little placard and you can read its specs. We're actually going to have things set up and in use. And so it'll be really neat to get to see something like that. And we're also, we're going to have different programming in booth with some of our sponsors or groups that we find interesting and are, have something to say about topics of the day that are of concern to higher ed. Plus, we're going to have a couple happy hours, and we're going to have chair massages for a couple hours. So we figured we're just going to go all out this year to try to really make a splash. And hopefully we won't be so annoying that they're like, yeah, we don't want them back again. But I feel like at a trade show, that's what you want. You want those couple of booths that are going to really kind of draw people in. And, even though we may annoy everybody that's around us, I think they'll appreciate the foot traffic that'll be coming past their booth anyway, because they may draw them in a little bit. But I do like that it seems like these big shows are becoming less and less about the big announcements or the big, this is the next, vaporware, essentially, because it's not available, and hopefully it'll be available in a quarter or two. And as someone who had a project fail nearly completely because of a consultant who spec'd something in a project that they saw at InfoComm, that a year later it was still not released. So I'm glad to not see those kind of big splashy things. And yeah, with the way the internet is nowadays, you don't need to do that. You can create a lot of buzz in other ways than just, having something flashy in your booth at Infocom.
I mean, you've almost talked me into trying to get to Infocom again here when you talk about that booth like that. I might have to start walking. How long is it going to take me to walk to Florida?
Right. Yeah. It'll probably, that time of year, it'll probably be kind of a gross walk once you hit that humidity. Ugh.
Take the Appalachian Trail in reverse.
Our next story comes to us from mytechdecisions.com. AI integration, how to integrate AI with existing systems for maximum benefits. Now, I know that we had talked a bit last episode about some AI things, but Rob and Ernie missed out on the conversation and Luis wasn't there. So it's kind of like it's a brand new subject for us. So what do we have to say about this?
Well, I love it. It's been super helpful, doing my job. Oftentimes it's just me by myself trying to figure out problems. And so, even for our commencement season, I have no qualms about admitting it, but I, hopped on ChatGPT and started asking it questions about, figuring out answers, things that I have in the back of my head, but I have to like scratch that itch in order to get down to like where that answer is in my brain. In the past, I used to be able to like rely on somebody to like talk back and forth with, like, let's figure out this networking problem. Why aren't the cameras working? And so having that dynamic with, the chat essentially, and being able to bounce those ideas back and forth, like tell me why this wouldn't work, and spur my mind to work in a different direction or work around the problem, or even something, as basic as like finding out the IP. I can't keep all those notes in my head 100% of the time. And sometimes it's just easier, right, to go to your coworker and ask, hey, how do you do this? I forgot. Can you remind me? There's like a step that I'm missing. And that's really where it starts to fill in the gaps for me, is like being that coworker that's available 100% of the time. And so I'm hoping that as, time progresses and the technology improves, that's a more reliable, trustworthy source, because, as with anything brand new, I don't necessarily trust it, 100% right off the bat. It prompts me to like, okay, this might be the answer. And then I go digging now that I have like these like stepping stones, if you will, of, okay, now let's look on more legitimate, more trustworthy sites if this is in fact the answer, to give myself that sense of, okay, yeah, I can trust this path and I can go down it. But I think, in a couple years, even I was thinking maybe like 5-10 years, but we're seeing this, bleed into like other industries, like almost so rapidly, right? We're having in other, concerns with AI music and AI artists and, portrayal of people that aren't really singing these songs. So it's just happening so quickly that in a couple of years, it's just going to be commonplace to like, this is your tool, like your onboarding process. I just expect it to be part of the process, like of we struggled with so long of, how do I train you on doing all of these things in my AD department? Like, there's so many things I need to train students on as my like primary source of workers. Like they know nothing. They don't know anything about AV systems. Like, but now you have a tool that can sit in your back pocket and be on your phone, and you can just ask the question that you're so, desperately needing to be answered, instead of going down the path that we normally have gone down of like, all right, let me Google like this starting subject and let's see if I can find my way towards the answer. Now it's more immediate, like, this is the problem that I'm facing, and almost immediately you get 90% of the answer right there at your fingertips, and then you can go from there. Again, it's not ready to like take over anybody's jobs. I don't think. I know that's the articles that I keep seeing everywhere else, is like most of these jobs will be replaced, but there's still that component that you have to insert yourself into, and make sure that the answer is correct. Because again, you're trusting, if you go 100% right now, you're trusting that this is 100% reliable. This is 100% how it should be, and that could be problematic. Like, that could be a potentially event-ending failure that you're setting yourself up on. So I used it for, as we were building that commencement setup, as we were building that live stream network, all just for the sake of this once, couple of days of ceremonies, like everything built upon all these different components. And so, making sure that I was going and verifying that information was crucial. And I think it's still going to be crucial for the next, I don't know, I'm going to throw a number out there, 18, 24 months, but it's just happening so quickly, and people are so eager to get their hands on it. I know there's that wariness about it, but like I'm engaged. I know folks around me are engaged about it, and that sort of engagement, like that's what's going to push it forward even faster and faster, because people want it. More people need to be working on this. More people need this type of solution, and more integrations will just continue to arise.
Absolutely. Like, I feel like even in just the last month since we recorded the last episode that we talked about chat GPT and AI and there I've seen lists of new chatbots that have been created just in this last 30 days, and it's incredible. And I there's a chatbot app that's integrated into Slack named Claude. And I think my husband is a little bit jealous because I'm always like, oh yeah, I asked Claude this and he had the best answer, and so he's just like, do I have to worry about Claude? I'm like, you might, because he's just getting smarter and smarter. But you're right about fact checking, like, because all of the data that's going, that it's pulling answers from, it didn't really check its sources. And just like anything on the internet, you never know.
It is getting better at telling you that it did not pull anything after September 2021 or whenever it was that it has a date for, last being like filled with information. So I think when I first started using it, it didn't do that as much, but now it's like, hold on, just making you aware that like this is kind of time sensitive information, like 2 years is a long time, should let you know like this might not be the most up to date thing. So that's helpful at least. But yeah, no, I just don't feel like it's going to take that much longer. Certainly if it was plugged into the rest of the internet, it could just check whatever instead of, right now it just feels like I'm like playing with Watson on Jeopardy when they had him like do the show all those years ago. But I mean, once it's plugged into the rest of everybody else, like what's really the limit there?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's sort of, I'm sort of wondering what the next level of this is. So as far as from an AV sort of perspective, where does AI come in? Does it obviously might help, integrators and designers design systems faster and more accurately? Will it get to the point where maybe we have management systems that are, that AI can just, give us feedback? Oh, like a global classroom or, any kind of management. Well, in classroom such and such, you really need to look at these hours that are happening here, instead of us, directly having to look at each room and say, okay, it's time to do that. Is there a capability of AI to come in and start managing that? Is there the ability for AI to start coming in and, we'd always talked about voice recognition and stuff in classrooms, or helping instructors get the right settings that they have. It possibilities are fascinating with this and scary at the same time, because you're giving the AI a level of trust and I'm going to say power, but responsibility. Are we ready for that? So it's fascinating.
I'm also thinking about, AI as a teaching tool, as an AV component in the classroom. We're starting to see that. And I think this article was kind of directing a little bit towards that as well. I do not see incorporating AI into existing systems. I see starting from scratch just to make sure, because there's so many different variables in there you have to kind of play with. But we are seeing some AI in some of our medical classes, and a lot of schools are putting in their esports, which involves a lot of AI as well. So yes, I see it as a management tool, a design tool, but also as a teaching tool in itself.
You all know I'm absolutely bullish on AI. I think that it is just the complete thing and the future. And Aaron, when we were recording last time, we were talking about AI again, and you said, "Well, think about what it can do for maintenance and support." And so I did. I thought about what it could do for maintenance and support. And so actually, my next Rave Pubs article is about that. And so I don't know if this is going to come out or that's going to come out first, but think about this fact that you've got a classroom that you feed your design into AI, you feed the manuals of that full classroom into AI. So in many ways, this AI knows the classroom better than you, and it's using the intelligence of the classroom so that it knows if a faculty member is trying to play YouTube, that the audio, that it has to be on the computer input, that audio should be coming out. Is audio coming out? Is the projector actually on? Is there something showing on the projector? And then goes and fixes itself. Then, I mean, if you take that and you add in like augmented reality and you walk in and it's like, it'll show you, oh, here's the problem. Here's what you need to fix. Wire got disconnected, whatever. It's crazy. And I think one of the craziest things about it is I don't think it's that far away. So many times we talk about dreamy things, holograms. I still think holograms are great. They're still a long ways away. This is, as Luis was saying, I mean, you feel like this is just right in front of us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Things like I forget if it's NVIDIA or someone did with eye movement in video where
Yes.
it'll automatically fix. And
Freaky.
watching the last recording of this podcast, I was like, I could use that because my eyes are bonkers. Like, I'm like, where am I looking? But to have, if the technology to have it just fix, like make my eyes look like they're looking straight, even though I may be all over the place, would be amazing. And
you've seen the one where it's like, this is the actual video and this is the AI corrected video. It's weird.
yeah. But I'm like, I could see that being so helpful. Absolutely. But it would be it'd be kind of neat if, because as if all of us, had all the extra time in the world because we don't do enough things. It'd be kind of neat to build a specific AV bot, essentially, that like it's just that is the information that it is fed, and that'd be really neat to but somebody's out there listening to this and they'll be like, oh, they're onto something. All right, let's make this happen.
EdTech GPT.
Yeah. Maybe we could have a virtual guest on our show that's AI driven.
The next story comes to us from AV Magazine. Strive AV completes 147 classroom installation in 12 days. So you don't have to do the math. 147 rooms in 12 days is 12 and a quarter rooms per day. And with 4 teams working around the clock, that's basically 36 and 3/4 rooms per team that they had to complete, which is about 3 rooms per day per team.
I'm thinking I would be impressed with 12 rooms in 147 days.
So, it's interesting because I'm not sure I read through all of this, but it seemed like, and everybody correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of these were they're putting up interactive boards. It seemed like they're pretty simple setups, not taking anything away from it. But if you have enough time, resources, and your classroom refresh is simple, and you have the time, like trying to get time for integrators to come in and do a few rooms, even in between semesters, is a challenge because there's other things that go on in these classrooms and these event spaces. If they have that time set aside and everything's clear and they can just go to town and do it, that's doable. I mean, if that room was a super, high flex hybrid, interactive holographic, classroom and they did in that time, I'd be like, oh, okay, now we really got something. That's not taking away from it, but if you plan the time out, manage the time out, putting up those types of setups, if you're uninterrupted, it can be done. But it is impressive.
It's interesting. At first, it really intrigued me because I was like, this is cool because exactly what Rob just said. We think we've got all summer, but everything's going on in rooms all the time. And I think probably most of us do things in modular steps so that we can move in as quick, right? We've got our racks built or our podiums built. And in certain cases, and if you're hiring out, fine. Like if you can get something done in 12 days, that's great. I look at it, one of the things I'm really aware of, especially after COVID, is people burning out. And to me, boy, especially in a place like Maine, summertime is precious. And I don't even like thinking of the idea of pushing my team past 8 hours a day. So I'm all about being very efficient. I'm all about doing things modularly. We need a really good reason to try to do something like this. People need time, and like Rob said, the other piece is, unless this is truly cookie cutter install after install after install after, there's just a ton of room for mistake and error rushing something like that. So it's cool, and I'm sure that there's a reason they did it this way. But I'm glad I don't work for that integration firm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like, it seems like they went for a consistent experience across the rooms. It's just the varying sizes of the boards, which is great. Getting that, but yeah, and also that would have to be like a significant investment to put in to do all of those rooms all at once. So it'll be interesting when it comes time to renew and replace those boards, if it's going to be we'll do this 50 or this group first, and then let some of them go a little bit older past the year they would have maybe renewed or replaced them to begin with.
Yeah, we just had a group do several rooms on one of our campuses. They were 4 almost identical rooms. Well, they took their time, did the first one, and did all the testing and everything, and then they did the next 3 like over a long weekend. Start noon on Friday and finish noon on Monday, and they just tell their staff, you're going to be here till it's done, and we give them 24/7 access to the space. And they came in and did it with the understanding that we would have the networks configured the way they had requested, and everything was set up. But they did get it going, and the rooms were usable. They weren't fully tested and vetted the way I would like for them to have been, but we were able to do it during the school year by doing it that way. But now the problem I have is when we find a problem, we find it in all the rooms. As opposed to completely vetting out the first one, which they said they had, we found out they had not. They repeated the errors. So, but once you did get it fixed in one room, you do the fix for the other 3, and we held them to doing the repairs, not our staff. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's neat that they were able to do them this fast, but I would rather have them done right and take a little bit of extra time.
Yeah, it's funny, Ernie, because I think you hit a really great point that could be another topic. Integrators come in, say, yeah, we tested the room, we vetted the room, and you had darn better follow up with your own people, testing those rooms and vetting them yourself, because a lot of times these guys will say they've done it, and in a month or so, something starts happening, something goes wrong, and in like a huge deployment like that, if they miss something, a whole lot of stuff's going to go wrong. They're going to have some very angry customers. But yeah, so that vetting process is very critical.
Well, what we do is we create what we call a performance verification rubric. And it's a document that says, okay, our scope says you have to do this. It takes every line of the scope explains what it means and how to test it. The contractor has to sign off on it on every line item. They give me a completed one that says, it met every specification. The audio was plus or minus 3 dB from this corner to that corner across the space. The brightness was the same on every display, et cetera, et cetera. It's usually 3 or 4 pages long based on the scope. After they've signed off on it, before we cut the final check and release them, we go through with a blank copy of that rubric and do the exact same thing. And if we find anything wrong, we bring them back and say, show us how you measured it. And we do that, like I said, we do that before we give them sign off and allow our finance people to cut the check. So,
Well, all right. That seems to be all for this episode. So I wanted to thank our special guest, Luis Garcia, for joining us. Luis, any last thoughts? And how can people get in touch with you?
Last thoughts for me are I'm just stuck with the AI and seeing how that's going to help us, keyword help, all of us in our respective jobs and responsibilities. People get a hold of me on LinkedIn or on Twitter at El Garcia AV.
Awesome. Scott, how can people get in touch with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn or on Twitter at Stiner, Stiner, here once a month, or also on Rave Pubs.
Awesome. And how about you, Rob?
LinkedIn. I got to do that Twitter thing, don't I? LinkedIn right now.
And how about you, Ernie?
you can also find me on LinkedIn. I have an account on Twitter, but I'm more of a troll. So.
Well, all right, everybody. And for me, you can find me on LinkedIn at Aaron Marmoran, or also on Twitter at Smearin_off_ice. Thank you for joining us for this episode, and hope to see you next time.